So you want a hatchback, but you need a little bit of luxury to keep you sane during the morning commute. Well, that car right there, the Mazda 3, it's one of the best sellers in the hatchback segment in Australia. But today we want to see whether the all-new Civic has the goods to take it on.
The two cars we've picked here sit right at the top of each brand's hatch offering. Well, that's outside the hot Civic Type R. The Honda Civic VTI LX comes in at $33,590 plus on-road costs, and it's exclusively offered with a continuously variable transmission. It's loaded with features and tech and brings with it safety equipment such as AEB that isn't available on lesser Civic models. In the other corner is the Mazda SP25 Estina. It's priced from $33,490 plus on-road costs with a 6-speed manual, but this 6-speed automatic is priced from $35,490, making it a full $2,000 more than the Civic.
So you'd think that buying a hatchback means you're compromising on space, but definitely not here. And this is where Honda's really excelling at the moment. We're talking about 410 litres of capacity. That's really big. And you may notice there's no cargo blind, but there is. It's this nifty feature here. So that slides across there to cover up all of your valuables. And unlike an old school cargo blind that gets in the way and then needs to be removed when it's not in use, this one simply slides out of the way. Under here, you've got a space saver spare tyre. The seats fold in a 60-40 split folding configuration, and good news, you can fit a full-size piece of luggage in there without too many issues. But how does that compare to the Mazda? Well, it's not so good in the Mazda, and that's because there's only 308 litres of cargo capacity in here. That's over 100 litres less than the Civic, and you can easily tell why. It's because that boot floor sits quite high, and then it's quite a narrow envelope with this kind of ungainly cargo blind. But on the upside, you do get a space saver spare tyre under there. You also get 60-40 split folding seats, and it fits our full-size suitcase. How do these compare in terms of legroom though? Well, let's start in the Mazda and find out. As you get nestled into the back here, you'll realise there is literally no knee room at all. I've got barely any toe room either. Mind you, this is with the seat quite far back in my standard driving position, but I do have plenty of headroom there. I've also got a centre armrest with 2 cup holders. There's also ISOFIX on the outboard seats, but you'll also notice a distinct lack of rear air vents and USB charging. Now, Civic won on cargo space. Can it also win on rear legroom? Well, it's much closer here in the Civic with the seat sort of back where I normally have it, which is quite far back. I don't have that much legroom. It is more than the Mazda, but it's still not an amazing amount. So my knees are almost up against the seat there, and toe room is about the same as the Mazda. But this is pretty disappointing. My head is touching the roof in the back there, which isn't great. But on the upside, centre armrest, 2 cup holders there. You also have ISOFIX points for the kids on the outboard sides. But again, no rear air vents and no USB connectivity. This seat though is where you're going to be spending most of your time, so let's see how the Honda compares up front. Now when I say luxury, I mean tech and gadgets to keep you nice and comfy during that traffic jam, and this has them all. We're talking 7-inch infotainment system. This is a good unit. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, built-in navigation, so you can basically mirror your smartphone onto that screen, which is excellent stuff. You've got voice recognition, you have dual zone climate control, heated seats, and then stacks and stacks of storage. So I'm talking here, talking under here, a giant center console. Have a look at this with a couple of cup holders there. You have plenty of connectivity as well for that 12-speaker stereo with subwoofer, which means you've got USB, HDMI, 12 volt, and even a USB tucked into here. And then to top it off, in front of the driver, a big LCD display with all the car's critical functions. But as the sales leader in the segment, the Mazda 3, how does that compare in terms of tech? It's certainly not a step down here in the Mazda. You can see why this is one of the best sellers in the segment. This is a beautiful interior, really nicely presented, and arguably feels a little more luxurious than the Honda. You've got these beautiful finishes along the center console and also along the doors as well. Let's talk about infotainment. 7-inch MZD Connect system. That's the name Mazda uses, and it's all controlled here by this little cluster. It's also a touch screen when the car's stationary. While it does get DAB digital radio like the Honda, it misses out on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's a little confusing to use at times as well. But you do get a voice recognition system. You also get heated seats, dual zone climate control, and plenty of storage as well. So up the front there, a storage cubby there that holds 2 cup holders. And then for your extra valuable stuff, you can store it in the back here as well. terms of creature comforts, both cars have radar cruise control for traffic, but this car also gets a heads-up display with traffic sign recognition, just in case you missed the last traffic sign. Now, in terms of a verdict for this front section of the cabin, it's the Honda that just gets ahead by a nose because of the extra tech that really should be standard here on the Mazda. But let's hit the road and see how the Mazda drives. Part of the reason Australians love the Mazda 3 so much is the naturally aspirated engine. It's a 2.5 litre unit, it makes 138 kilowatts of power and 250 newton metres of torque, and it uses a 6-speed automatic transmission. And that gearbox does such a good job of giving you power whenever you need it. And if you find yourself a little hill like this, you just get stuck into the throttle and it just delivers you that torque linearly. It is absolutely beautiful. Fuel economy is excellent, 6.1 litres per 100 kilometres, so that's pretty reasonable for a car in this segment. But where the Mazda 3 is really let down is by tyre noise. Despite the fact that Mazda says road noise has been quelled a bit in this latest Mazda 3 variant, it's still quite noisy here. Even travelling at just 70 k's an hour, it can be quite loud. And then head out onto the highway at 100 k's an hour, and then it's even louder still. One of the other great things about the Mazda 3 is the steering feel. It's nice and gentle in and around the city, which means it's easy to park. But then when you are out in the country, it's quite responsive and makes the car really fun to drive. You won't mind crashing over potholes in the Mazda 3. It really is very well tuned for Australian roads and feels right at home regardless of whether you're zipping around the city or eating up some country miles. It's hard to describe, but the Mazda 3 feels really nice to drive behind the wheel. You've got excellent vision out the front, sides and back. The seats are incredibly comfortable, and then you have heaps of light coming in thanks to this giant sunroof. Safety is important in these hatchbacks, mainly because you're going to be spending most of your time in and around the city, and Mazda's done a great job with it. Autonomous emergency braking is standard across the entire Mazda range. That's in comparison to Honda, where you can only get it on the top spec model. There's other good features in there as well, like a lane keeping assistant and also rear cross traffic alert. That stuff comes in handy when you're reversing and you can't see pedestrians or other cars coming. The car will warn you so that you know they're on the way. Servicing happens every 12 months or 10,000 kilometres, whichever one comes first, and it's capped price as well, which is good news. But it's disappointing that Mazda only offers this car with a 3-year warranty. Makes you wonder why they don't want to get behind the product. So the Mazda 3 brings zoom and that smile factor. The engine has plenty of punch, it's really efficient and it's great fun to drive. But will Honda's smaller engine set it back? Let's find out. There's no secret here, the Honda uses a much smaller engine, a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder, but it's got a turbocharger. And instead of a conventional automatic gearbox, this uses what they call a continuously variable transmission. And that means that when you bury the throttle, instead of it diving through gears, it just starts putting on revs to get into the engine's peak torque zone. And it really suits this engine. You can get right up it, and it delivers a really fun feel behind the wheel. Fuel economy comes in at 6.1 litres per 100 kilometres, so that perfectly matches the Mazda 3, but it will go downhill when this light here turns white, and that happens every time you stab the throttle. The steering is a bit heavier in the Civic, and it's not so much of an issue when you're on the move. It's more at low speeds that you really notice it if you're trying to sort of reverse into a tight parking space. But it is offset by an excellent ride, and even out here on country roads where it can be quite undulated and full of potholes, the car does a really good job of transmitting that to the cabin. Visibility out of this car is fantastic. Even out the back there where you've got kind of like an inbuilt spoiler, it's quite easy to see out the sides, front and rear as well. Also plenty of light thanks to that sunroof too. But my favourite feature is lane watch. So with one flick of the indicator, you get a camera come on the left-hand wing mirror. And that's incredibly handy in and around the city when you're going to be near cyclists and people that sneak up on the inside. It must be a trait here with Japanese cars, but just like the Mazda 3, there's a fair bit of road noise that comes into this cabin. We are on a coarse chip road here, so it will be a little amplified, but it is a bit disappointing that they haven't refined stuff like that in 2018. The Civic VTI LX comes standard with Honda Sensing, and that's Honda's safety package that bundles features like adaptive cruise control, autonomous emergency braking, lane keeping assistant, and a road departure mitigation, plus adaptive headlights. But it's disappointing that that tech is only available on the top spec Civic, unlike the Mazda 3 range, which offers it across its entirety. Servicing happens every 12 months or 10,000 kilometres, whichever comes first, and it's bolstered by a fantastic 5-year warranty. You also get cap price servicing. Now, both of these cars are excellent in terms of features and price, but there can only be one winner. So while the Mazda 3 leads the segment in terms of sales, this comparison has proven that it's not always the most popular option that's the best. The Honda Civic wins because there's plenty of features, plenty of room inside, and plenty of performance as well. To read the full detailed comparison, head to caradvice.com. But in the interim, don't forget to subscribe and check out some of our other car videos.